All right, welcome back, everybody. I have good news. This is the last video series on Flowgorithm for this class. So maybe some of you are rejoicing for that, but we're going to dive into the second portion on loops today. So we'll just get right into it. And if you remember when this is the same slide from last time, basically we will cover two different loop structures in this class. We already went over the while loop in the last series, so hopefully everybody's getting comfortable with while loops and kind of how those work. Today we are going to dive into the for loop, which is once again a way to loop or iterate through a program. It's just going to be a different way, a different method of doing that. So just to recap here a little bit, the while loop, we kind of stated last time that it is the simplest form of a loop because the logic for it is quite simply do something until a condition is not met. So basically do something until a flag or a counter or something is no longer true. So it can be used to repeat a single or a set of instructions until some kind of condition is no longer true or it turns to false. So fairly simple there. And then if I were to open up Flowgorithm here for us, you can see that if we do add a while loop, right, enter conditional expression, so it wants something, that can be true or false in here. It's pretty simple. You just get one block in here. We'll see how that contrasts a little bit with a for loop. However, to reiterate again one more time, the three parts of a loop do not change when we go to a for loop. We're going to have our initialization. We are going to have an exit condition as well as updating. So the initialization is that initial value of the loop counter, right? So how do we actually enter that loop? The exit condition is going to be the opposite. It'll be that Boolean condition, a true or false, that tells when to exit the loop or when to quit looping. And then there has to be something in that loop that will basically iterate or add to itself, subtract from itself, that is going to, basically work its way to that exit condition. If you don't have this updating portion, you will still have a loop. However, it's going to be called an infinite loop. You'll learn more about those later on. It'll basically kill your program and just run forever, hence the name infinite loop. So something you want to avoid for sure. So you want to make sure you definitely have this updating part in conjunction with the exiting condition working together to make sense. All right, moving on to the new topic, which is the for loop. Before we said the while loop was the simplest form, so the for loop is going to be the most common form of a loop in most programming languages. So most programming languages, especially to SVSU that you're going to come across, will you're probably going to use the for loop most often. So. And the reason for that is the for loop is best used when you have a specific block of code and you know exactly how many times you want to run that. So that is in contrast with the while loop, because the while loop you just went until something was no longer true. You didn't really know the number of times that it would happen. The for loop, you will know that specific number of, or the program will know that specific number of times. And something that's nice about the for loop does use a variable that automatically keeps track of every loop iteration for you. With the while loop, you probably had to declare a counter or some kind of variable to keep track of those loop iterations or user input or something. And the for loop, you don't need to do that. The for loop has in its loop definition a variable that'll keep track of that for you. It'll often be called an index. So